Hi everyone, welcome to Sunny Day Discussions. I am Sunny Day. There was so much to go over this last week. It's been overwhelming. But I want to start with Arizona. In Arizona, there is a lawmaker who signed on to Trump's fake elector scheme. He introduced a bill that would allow members of the state house to overturn future election results that they don't like. The bill, Senate Concurrent Resolution 1014, seeks to bypass the popular vote altogether. The bill says it is the responsibility of the Arizona Secretary of State to certify elections, including for President of the United States, but the sole authority to appoint presidential electors is granted to the legislature. The legislature and no other official shall appoint presidential electors in accordance with the U.S. Constitution. In other words, if the popular vote in Arizona goes to the Democratic candidate or someone who's not Trumpian enough, instead of giving those electoral votes to the person who won the popular vote, which is standard issue, they can say, well, that's too bad. We don't like that. So as members of the state house, we're going to give the electoral college votes to the person of our choosing, completely negating any sort of election. They're basically saying, your votes don't matter. We're going to do what we want to do. And if you don't vote the way we want you to, then your vote doesn't count. So it's a direct slap in the face of democracy, and yet another way that Republicans shit on the Constitution and shit on the values of our country, while at the same time screaming that they are patriotic and constitutionalists and all that kind of stuff. Well, yeah, that's who they are these days. Now, I think I had previously spoken about the Convoy Take Our Border Back, or God's Army as it's called. I think Hezbollah translates into God's Army, if that gives you any figure of what they are. They had kind of a rough start on their journey. One of the organizers claimed that over 40,000, I read 70,000 somewhere as well, trucks and bikers and stuff like that were going to show up to protect the border, our southern border. Well, about 20 vehicles showed up to protect the southern border. And it kind of started to go south from the very beginning. The place that they were originally going to meet, the owner said, well, yeah, no, I don't want you to meet here. You can't meet here. So they had to scramble and find some new place to meet, which ended up being in a parking lot. On the way, members of the convoy at the hotel they were staying at woke up to find their tires slashed. Not cool to whoever did it, but still amusing. They departed behind schedule, and one of the members of the convoy immediately got lost. Didn't know where to go. They argued over accommodations. The convoy's main bus pulled over on the highway and kicked out a member of the convoy, or one of the passengers, and allegedly that was without his wallet. So it's unclear as to why he was kicked out, and then there has been some further reporting that once they arrived at the border, they're kind of shocked to see that it wasn't the invasion that they were envisioning. And I know there's reporters, right-wing reporters that have gone down there and been like, we saw 200 trying to cross the border, and maybe you did. Maybe they did, but that doesn't constitute an invasion. So now I wanted to go into, speaking of the border bill that was supposed to be bipartisan that Trump didn't like because it helped Biden. Well, it pretty much was the Democrats going, we'll give you whatever you want so that we can fund Ukraine and Israel. My opinions on that is a whole nother story. But they were given the option to, or in the bill, it was going to be able to close the border when it got overwhelmed. It was a complete overhaul of the asylum program. It provided funds for thousands of new immigration officers, allowed the president, like I said, to shut down the border. In a normal political environment, this would have been a win for Republicans. They would have gotten everything they wanted. In fact, even the acting chief of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, as well as the union representing Border Patrol agents, all endorsed this bill. They signed on to it, and they said it's not perfect, obviously, but it's a good start. And it's far better than what we've got going now and maintaining the status quo. Now, these people who endorsed this bill, the union and the acting chief, are open Trump supporters. They've endorsed Trump in the past. They like his policies, whatever those were. But they're even endorsing this and saying this would help out a lot. But because Trump doesn't want to give Biden a win, he shut it down. And all of his sycophants in Congress did exactly what he told them to do, and shut it down. And they're lying to their constituents, saying it wasn't good enough, it wasn't strong enough, even though it was the strongest, most conservative border bill since, I believe, the 80s. That's 40 plus years. So the bill was labeled tough but fair. Most of the progressives were not opposed, or are opposed to it, don't like it. But a lot of the corporate Democrats were right on board with it and approved it. The union president, Brandon Judd, is a noted critic of Biden. The National Border Patrol Council says that the Border Act of 2024 will give Border Patrol agents an authority that they never had in the past, including removing single adults expeditiously and without lengthy judicial review, which historically has required the release of these individuals into the interior of the U.S. They believe this will lead to a drop in border crossings. Again, it's another example to show that the GOP doesn't give a damn about this country, doesn't give a damn about its constituents, and only cares about their perceived power and whatever they can make off of that wealth-wise. So, another example of the GOP putting party ahead of country lies with Governor Sununu of New Hampshire, I believe it is. Yes. He's an open critic of Trump and a big supporter of Nikki Haley. He's endorsed her and wants her to be the nominee. While he openly talks about the dangers of Donald Trump and another Trump term, knowing that he's becoming authoritarian and he will destroy the country if he is elected, he still said that if Trump is the nominee, he will vote for him. Now that, in my mind, makes it even worse. The average Trump supporter, civilian, is honestly ignorant to a lot of the things that Trump has done because the media doesn't cover it and paints him as this savior, the only person who can make America great again, whatever that means or whatever they have in their head, this false scenario. So I understand a little bit more about the Trump supporters supporting him. But as someone who knows and knowingly admits what a danger Trump is to democracy, to then turn around and say, yeah, but I will vote for him anyway because he is the Republican nominee. You're putting your party over your country. And that's not acceptable. That is not the position you need to be in as a governor, as a politician, whatsoever. You always put country first. So now there are some Republicans in my home state that are having a wake-up moment, if you will. They have a long history of the conservatives in Oregon have a long history of walking out when it comes to votes that they don't want to do. Like, they staged the longest walkout of 6 weeks last year. And that was because they didn't want to vote on trans rights. They didn't want to vote on abortion rights. They didn't want to vote on gun control. None of it. So they walked out. And in Oregon's constitution, you have to have a quorum in order to pass a vote. And by them leaving, eliminated the quorum, basically leaving the legislature ineffective and unfunctioning. So on the ballot last year, there was a bill that said that if any member of Congress has 10 unexcused absences, they will no longer be allowed to run for office in the next term. And it passed overwhelmingly. A huge number of people voted for it. It became state law. Well, the Republicans were big mad, and they took it to the Oregon State Supreme Court. And the Oregon State Supreme Court said, no, the voters said this is what they want. It is now the law, and you have to abide by that. Well, because of that, and it's unclear whether they're going to keep battling it or just suck it up, but because of that, most of the Republicans in the Oregon State Congress can't run again next term. So it's going to be a complete replacement of almost all of the Republican politicians in the state Congress. And they're not happy about that. It doesn't mean, there's nothing in the bill that I can find that says that they can't run again after this next term. It doesn't say they can't run indefinitely. It just says they can't run for the next term. So if they bide their time, wait out the term, then they can run again. But by their actions of just walking out, it means, and it makes it so, the minority has power over the majority. That's not what a democracy is about. A democracy is the people vote in the politicians that they want from various different viewpoints, backgrounds, religions, ethnicities, whatever. And those people come together, those elected officials come together to form a compromise for the betterment of the lives of the people in their constituency and for the country. That's how it works. Yeah, it leaves people pissed off because things don't get done fast enough, because they don't get what they want. But that's how it works. That's the way it works, and it's supposed to be progressive. You know, each time a bill is passed, it's meant to improve the lives of the people in this country. But today's conservatives don't see it that way. They see that if they don't get their own way, that they're being silenced and canceled, and there's some huge conspiracy that the Democrats are involved in that's silencing them, rather than trying to work and compromise on a solution that would benefit everybody. They'd rather walk out like petulant children that storm out because they're not getting their own way. That's what they're behaving like. They're acting like children. So now that's kind of got to stop. But the minority leader in Congress, in Oregon's Congress, has said that they're not going to stop or disencourage, if that's a word, people from walking out, because they are allowed to stand up for their beliefs. Yeah, they are. But that's what the debates on the House floor and the Senate floor are about, is to show your dissent, your dislike for whatever bill you're debating on. And that's part of the negotiation process. You bring up these things that you do not like and work with the other side to make it a compromise. Again, they obviously don't like that. They want their way or nothing at all. Now, I listened to the Supreme Court's, the arguments for Trump being on the ballot in front of the Supreme Court yesterday. And my opinion without having any degree or anything like that, just from following politics for the last 7, 8 years, they're going to side with Trump. The questioning was very obvious. They gave themselves away. They're going to side with Trump. And I meet this with such mixed emotions because I think he needs to be held accountable. And kicking him off the ballot would be holding him to account. But I don't think Biden can beat Nikki Haley. So as long as Trump is on the ballot and it comes down to Biden and Trump, I think Democrats are good. I think we're going to at least keep the Senate and the White House, and probably the House, honestly. But if they kick him off, I think we might lose the White House. So I meet it with the mixed emotions because I want justice to be served. I want Trump to be held accountable because he's never been held accountable in his entire life. But I also know that if a Republican, even Nikki Haley, gets into office in this voting cycle, that our democracy is in even more danger. And if Trump gets in, then you can just kiss democracy goodbye. So that's my opinion on the Supreme Court thing. We'll find out. I don't know when, but probably in a few months. So that's all I have for you today. Like, share, subscribe, vote. No matter how big, how small, how inconsequential, your vote matters. And read everything you can get your hands on. And I will see you next time.